Hello, Fallen Dragonite here with another review for the Black Friday series. Now then, we've previously looked at Super Impulse's Tiny Arcade. Now we are looking at another offering from Super Impulse, their world's smallest micro action figure series. Now then, there are a few different versions of this. There's G.I. Joe, there's Ninja Turtles, there's Power Rangers, there's the old Mego figures. I believe there's also Transformers, but they don't transform. They're just static figures. But we are looking at the Masters of the Universe, and in particular, we are taking a look at He-Man and Battle Cat. Now, you're probably wondering, how small are these things? Well, let's get my Revoltech figure out. Yeah, those things are pretty dang small. Yeah, I believe these things are just over an inch for the standard figure. As you can see, they have these little plastic packaging, which they Super Impulse did do for quite a few of their world's smallest figures in order to make sure that you don't lose them. They did it for the Hot Wheels, I believe, which are about the size of a penny. They did it for some of their Barbies, I believe. Not all of them, I just think some of them. And they're doing it for these little 1-inch micro action figures. As you can see on the back, we have Teela and Skeletor, which I do not have. In fact, these things were really hard to find. They only had like one He-Man and two Battle Cats when I found these. The front of the packaging, it does have the classic Masters of the Universe logo. It has the bursting rock decal. And yes, this is a sticker. It's not vinyl, it's just a plain old sticker. The only difference between this and the vintage packaging is that the bubble is off to the side instead of in the center. And as you can see, they have the He-Man on the bottom there. Same with the Battle Cat, too. It does have the rock explosion. Then it has the Micro Action Figure series on the back. I don't recall if Battle Cat in the Vintage series was in a window box like this. I think it was actually just a standard cardboard box, but I don't remember exactly. I haven't seen the original Battle Cat packaging. Now then, these little plastic packages do open up, as you can see. Of course, there's his accessories, and get this little tab here. Oh, come on. Come on, don't do this to me. I know I trimmed my nails, but yeah, there's a tab here. Just pull out. You don't have to keep this if you don't want to, but without it, it just kind of flops around in there. He doesn't really stand up without that backing, so I would suggest keeping that backing if you want to display him in the package. And as you can see, there is little tiny 1-inch He-Man. Of course, his harness is a separate piece, but I don't think you can get this off without breaking it. I think it's pretty solidly on there. And of course, you cannot put his power sword in there, or at least not easily. Doesn't look like there's a slot in there at all. They might have been trying to engineer one, but they couldn't get it at the scale. As you can see, he does have shoulder articulation, although it's kind of loose on this side. He also has head articulation, which you wouldn't expect on a figure this small. However, he does not have waist articulation, which is a real downside. Nor does he have hip articulation, but I wasn't expecting hip articulation with a figure this size. But you think if they could get the head, they could at least get a torso articulation. That being said, just being able to get arms and head articulation at this small of a scale is pretty impressive. Now then, we're going to put him off to the side, and one of his accessories already fell out of the bag. But he has all these little tiny accessories. there is one in particular I'm going to be leaving in the bag, so I'm going to hold on to it while I dump out the rest. Come on. Come on, get out. Get out. Okay. There's this little tiny knife. Yes, that is a vintage accessory that He-Man had, but I am never going to take this out of the bag. This is too small, very easily lost. I highly recommend never taking this out of the bag if you don't want to lose it. First up, we're going to take a look at the shield, which is nicely painted, if I do say so myself. There's also the back, which actually has the clip. So what we do is put it up on his arm like so. We got to put it up on his bicep in order to make sure there's enough friction there to have him hold onto the shield like so. Oh, I have it on backwards because we have to have the tab pointing out to his hand to simulate the second tab, because they couldn't put in the second tab. They have the little faux second tab there. But yeah, shield just hooks onto his arm like so. Next, we take a look at his vintage axe, which is something that He-Man's always had, although he never used it in the show. It just goes right into his hand, like so. And of course, depending on the angle you hold it in, he'll actually hold on to it. But sometimes it doesn't hold in too well. It just depends on what position you get it in and where on the axe he's holding it. He can hold on to it, it's just he doesn't hold on to it well. The Power Sword, on the other hand, as you can see, is nicely painted in silver, whereas the axe was just flat gray plastic. This is nice silver, and it does have that tab on the end, just like the original vintage toy did. So you just put it in his hand, slide it up, and I'm going to have to do this off camera because it's kind of really hard to do this from behind a camera, but yeah. There we go. He's holding his Power Sword in. Hold on a second. I'm going to check something here. Yeah, the battle axe kind of sort of goes into his back like that. Looks kind of weird, but he can hold most of his accessories anyway. I don't want to try to force this into the hole any further because I don't know how far it's going to go. But yeah, there's He-Man all decked out in his gear, and we go to the final accessory, which is this little tiny clear plastic base. There is, of course, the tab, and there is the hole in his foot. I'm going to do this off camera because, again, this is very tiny. I have to make sure I get it lined up properly, but there. Now he's on his base and he can actually stand up on his own. Kind of impressive they were able to actually get all this detail in on such a small scale. Now let's take a look at Battle Cat, which, because he has the bigger box, he just opens up like that. And of course I kept in the inner packaging because, again, it's just easier to have it standing in display when the inner packaging is included. As you can see, he is nicely detailed. He has the saddle, he has the helmet, which of course, just like the vintage toy, is a separate piece. You can take off the saddle, but I'm not going to do it on camera because you have to do something with his legs. As you can see, he actually has leg and tail articulation as well as head articulation, which is not something the vintage toy had, because the vintage toy was just a solid piece of plastic with a removable saddle. But as you can see, if you finagle the tail and the legs correctly, you can actually just slide the saddle off. Again, I'm not going to do it on camera because it would just be too much of a hassle. I am not a fan of the helmet because it does not stay on too well, as you can see. It feels like there should be enough friction in the saddle in order to hold it in place, but then it just juts out at an odd angle like that. He also doesn't need a base because, of course, he's a four-legged creature. He can just stand up on his own. Now, you're probably wondering, can He-Man ride Battle Cat? And the answer to that is kind of. It looks kind of weird because you're just stretching out his legs a little just to get him on the saddle, but he can kind of sort of ride Battle Cat. He's not on the saddle all the way like he's supposed to be, but you can kind of do it. Yeah, it's weird, ridiculous, but it's amusing as hell. Yeah, and that's why I have to put the base on off camera, because I have to line up that little tiny itty bitty hole on his foot. Make sure it gets in all the way. So now you're probably wondering, what is the scale of this? Well, let's bring out my Revoltech figure again. And to her, get in her hand, it would be about the size of a 12-inch figure, like a 1/6 scale, like a doll or a Hot Toys figure. So to her, it would be a 1/6 scale figure. Let's pull out my Classics Skeletor. I'm probably not going to review him because he is part of a 2-pack. As you can see, he's missing a tooth. He was actually part of the Molar set, and I'm never going to take Molar out of the packaging. I'll never be able to get him back in otherwise. So, to Skeletor. This thing is about the size of a Masters of the Universe Classic. So, it's kind of an interesting parallel. A Classics figure to this, it's a Classic scale figure. Did you see anything Beastman? No, Skeletor, I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good! Sorry, I had to do the reference. I had to do that reference. I actually did it on Facebook before. So let's check one more scale reference. I have to pull this out of storage because I have a few of these for Halloween. I do have Monster High. I did bring out Draculaura, but this time I brought out Claudine. And to her, this thing is roughly the scale of a vintage figure. So I'd say this, if you want it in the original vintage size, would probably be about 1/6 scale. Which means if you have like a few dolls, if you have the Hot Toys or the 112 or any of those kind of collectibles, this would actually be good accessory scale to it. So that is my review of the world's smallest He-Man. I'm actually quite impressed what scale they were able to what they were able to do at this scale. Not perfect, but given the size, it's actually impressive. They're nice little things you can display on your desk. They don't take up a whole lot of space. And again, they're action figures for your action figures. Anyway, that's my review. And let's move on to the next Black Friday review. Later.